There she is. Hello, Katie.
Hey, how's everyone going?
Good. I think
Welcome.
you create a big crowd. We got a lot of people popping in.
Oh,
Well, welcome.
Amanda, I like your background. That's awesome.
Thank
Oh
you.
yeah, look at what she's got going on there. Wow.
That's legit.
That's my daughter, Amanda.
Hey, thanks for joining.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
She always comes up with a unique background for the meeting.
What were some of the others?
Oh, she's always, last week was our old house. Why she picked that, I'm not too sure, but she's always got a different one.
So it looks like some people are at work. Is that right? Calling in
Yeah,
from work?
a lot of people, well, I'm actually at my home office, but there's a few people that are with us from their work office. Looks like Jacob's at work. He's shaking his head over there.
I'm at work too, so welcome
I'm
to
always
the.
at work.
Oh, good. Which work? You have so many things you do.
I'm actually I'm in the Coast Guard.
Okay, yeah, I knew that.
joined about 2 years ago, and I'm stationed here in Portland, Maine.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Right
that's
South Portland. So I've been here since November, and now it's like seeing a whole different city now that there's not snow covering everything, and
Oh, okay.
so it's good.
Right. Well, Maine's
my
beautiful.
brother was in Portland, Maine. He retired from the Coast Guard.
Okay. They actually say that a lot of people who come here retire here just because their family
Yeah.
falls in love with the area and they don't want to have to move again. So a few people have already retired and are staying around. So
A beautiful area.
it is.
I did just the opposite, Katie. This is Bruce DeBerry. I'm from the Chagrin Highlands Club, and
Yeah.
I grew up in the New Hampshire seacoast, just a little below you. But it was always good to go there. And how I ended up here in Cleveland, and I'm probably going to retire here because this is where my wife is from and family. But it definitely, that New England seacoast is marvelous.
Oh yeah. Like there's like a mix. Some people are like, wait, you could have went to Florida or California and you chose to go all the way north. I'm like, yeah, I know what winter's all about. I'm from Cleveland. I do actually enjoy having the seasons, and yeah, like there's cross country skiing, and I haven't had a chance to, but ice fishing, and if you go even further up north, there's more moose and even penguins, and so it is. I don't know. One of my friends called it like the last frontier. That there's a lot here, just kind of like Alaska or any of those other states where there's a lot of natural beauty, and yeah, I'm gonna check out Acadia this weekend, so gonna explore a bit.
Have you seen the moose yet?
No, I just saw the moose signs. I was
Okay.
actually driving to the border to do the run. I'm running across Maine, and I wanted to like drive the route before running it just to get more familiar with it, which was actually a really good thing because the Google Maps and the maps had me going on like dirt roads, and I really need to be on road. But yeah, they had a bunch of signs up there about moose potential crossings. So
You say that there's penguins up there?
penguin, yes, even further.
I thought they were indigenous to South America,
Or
Antarctica.
was it puffins? Maybe it's puffins.
Okay.
The reason I asked about the moose is I got the privilege of seeing one when I was in Canada, and it was right next to the road. It had the full rack and everything. You see here, a 1,400 pound moose. You don't forget it. It is the biggest animal I've ever seen in my life. So I hope you get to see one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the only one I've ever seen is at Kabbalah's.
Well,
That's
we have
funny.
that here too.
Well, it looks like we can get started, everybody. I think everyone's here. Looks like Looks like Howard's just jumping in here. Welcome, everybody. My name's Steve Baginski. I'm president-elect here at Rotary. I'd like to introduce anybody that's here visiting. We have our speaker, Katie, here. She's joining us, and she will be telling us a lot about herself in a little bit. Thanks for joining us, Katie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we have Bruce DeBerry, our district representative. Anybody else have some guests?
I've got a guest, Nick Molnar's down there today.
Hi, Nick. Glad you could join us again.
Yeah, barely made it today, but I'm here.
Thanks, Nick. I also have my wife and Amanda here. Amanda's got a patriotic background there. You can't miss her. Anybody else have some visitors in the background that are hiding?
My wife, but I don't know where she is. Your mother.
Okay, thank you. Let's start out with an invocation. John, could you give the invocation, please?
Sure. Let's be in a spirit of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we pray for our nation. Remind us of your command that we should love our neighbors, and our neighbors include everyone, even those who it's hard to love. For some of us, it might be the police. For some of us, it might be protesters. For some of us, it might be members of opposite political parties. Give us strength to follow your command, dear God. Remind us of your instruction for forgiveness, that we must forgive others. For those of us who are eating, dear God, use this food to give us the strength to follow your will, to obey the four-way test, complete your mission. We ask these things in your holy name, dear God. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, now if everyone could share with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Does anyone have today in history? Casey's not with us, so I tried to prepare for that in case he wasn't. Does anyone know in 1858, this soon-to-be president, but was the senator, he was actually a newly nominated senatorial candidate, addressed the Illinois Republican Convention in Springfield and warns the nation that it faces a crisis that could destroy the Union. Speaking to more than 1,000 delegates in an ominous tone, this person paraphrased the passage from the New Testament, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Does anyone know who that famous person was?
Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely, Abraham Lincoln. That was his beginning to abolish slavery. Also on this day in 1965, Bob Dylan recorded "Like a Rolling Stone" for you Dylan fans. And here's an interesting one for all you roller coaster fans. On June 16th in 1884, a roller coaster, the first roller coaster in America opens, known as a switchback railway. Does anyone know where this new roller coaster opened up at?
New York.
And what was it called, the park?
Coney
Coney
Island.
Island.
Yeah. Just
Okay, so that's all I got in history. Does anyone else have any history tidbits? Okay. Well, we do have some special birthdays coming up. Isn't that right, Jacob? Jacob Carno's birthday is June 21st. Happy birthday, Jacob. Should we sing happy birthday to Jacob? Yeah. Okay, everyone's shaking their head. I see a lot of people shaking their head. Okay, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jacob.
Happy
Happy birthday
birthday
to you.
And many more.
Man, we are good. We should be a choir. And we do have some anniversaries today.
Oh,
Let's see. Todd Stewart and Susan Stewart, 8 years, June 16th, 2012. Casey Wright and Marlena Wright, 10 years, also June 16th, 2010. Josh Hayes and Teresa Hayes, 15 years. There's a June 17th, 2005. And Dr. Woodruff and Nancy, 35 years, June 15th. So congratulations on all the anniversaries. Okay, humor of the day, Dr. Conco. What do you got for us?
Well, after that disappointing choir performance that I've heard, I decided that since this virtual meetings is providing opportunities for visual aids, I'd give a couple a try. This first one is particularly for Robin with his Bloody Marys. Let's see if this shows up for you folks.
If you keep a drink in each hand, it's way harder to touch your face. Okay, I'm going to the kitchen, get another one.
Okay, here comes another one for you, Robin.
Stay at home. You are in a high risk group. Okay, yeah, that's right.
very high.
Oh,
That's it for today.
This is great. Let's roast Robin today. I like it.
Thank you, Dr. Conkle.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Wait till next week.
Okay, Carl, you still collecting those happy or sad dollars?
He's
did
on
we
mute.
lose? Oh. I gotta find them and unmute them.
Yeah, I like talking to myself.
There he is.
There he is. Don't take this the wrong way. My grandkids left today. They were here for 4 days and we had a great time.
Fantastic. And you miss them already, right?
The best tail lights are the lights as they leave on the back of my wife's car. Christmas lights, rather.
Carl, I didn't wear a pin today, but I have my end polio Rotary shirt on.
Very
Good.
nice. And I'll send out a happy dollar. I'm happy that Katie is here to join us and tell us about all her adventures. Anybody else?
Yes,
I'm
I have
happy
a happy
my
dollar.
newspaper comes out today.
Nice.
I have a happy dollar. 3 weeks ago, an organization in Solon called the Alliance of Black Families issued a scholarship in my name to a Solon High School student. And I thought that was pretty cool for someone to name a scholarship after you and you're still living.
That's the good news, Tony.
I like it. Okay, let's see. I'm going to mute everybody now. Except, let's see. Except for our speaker, of course. I'm trying to unmute her and it's not happening. There we go. Okay. I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Katie, thanks for joining us.
Having me.
Katie Spots is from Cleveland. It's nice to have a local person with us again today. She described herself as having been the bench warmer throughout her life. However, there came a time when she made a discovery. You don't have to be extraordinary to achieve incredible things. And she set about achieving them one by one. The list of accomplishments to her name is long and includes 5 Ironman triathlons, running 100 miles nonstop, cycling across the USA twice, a 325-mile river swim, running across deserts, and a solo row across the Atlantic Ocean. But this wasn't just any row. When Katie arrived in Guyana, South America, after 70 days at sea, she set a record for the youngest ever solo ocean rower, one of many records to her name. Throughout her row, Katie wasn't just seeking to make history, she was also raising money for safe drinking water projects around the world. As interest grew in Katie's amazing exploits, donations came flooding in. At the moment, the total stands at over $400,000. Katie's story has been featured on CBS Morning Show, CBS Evening News, World News with Diane Sawyer, Anderson Cooper 360, New York Times, NPR, PBS NewsHour, and the Discovery Channel. In 2010, Katie was honored by Glamour magazine as one of their Women of the Year, alongside people like Julia Roberts, Cher, and Queen Rania of Jordan. In 2011, Katie became a Rotary Ambassador Scholar and studied social entrepreneurship at Goldsmiths University of London. This September, Katie is embarking on her latest challenge, Run for Water, and will run across the entire state of Maine, covering 130 miles nonstop in 30 hours. Her goal is to raise $10,000 for school-based water and sanitation project in Tanzania in support of nonprofit organization Life Water International. Please join me in welcoming Katie. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you so much. So I'm gonna switch it over so I can share some slides. Let's see. Can you see them?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for inviting me to share my story and to share my passion that we both share. The Rotary also has a passion for helping and serving and making our world a better place than we found it. So thank you. So my story begins with humble beginnings at Lakeland Community College. I was doing a post-secondary enrollment option where I got the chance to take high school and college credit at the same time. The problem with this is that I had to take a gym class, and I was diploma. So I looked at the list and found out that there was a walking running class, and I was like, well, that's it. All I have to do is show up and walk and I'll get my easy A. So I show up to this class, and I was just thinking that I would just do the minimum effort to get this credit out of the way, but I figured I'm already here, I might as well try to run. Something that I really had avoided just because I wasn't much of a star athlete growing up. And at that end of the 1 mile run, I was so out of breath. My lungs felt like they were on fire, and I couldn't believe that people actually did something as crazy as running for fun. But there was this sense of accomplishment, something that I felt from not thinking I could do something and then proving myself wrong. So with that kind of thought, I became curious to see what else I might be able to do. So week by week, I tried to push it a little bit further, maybe just a quarter a mile or a half mile, very small increments. And I learned that I really enjoyed running. And by the end of the semester, that's when I considered running a marathon. I had these stories that, you know, marathons was for those people, and I wasn't one of them. And I was really nervous and afraid that I could do it. But I, at 18, signed up for my first marathon, and it was during that run that I was inspired by everyone else I was doing it with. There were people who were young and old, thick and thin. I think there was even a grandma that I saw one time in her 70s. There were all walks of life, and I was inspired by them and their stories and what that brought them to and through that finish line. So I became encouraged to continue to explore endurance, cycling across America. With a group, we raised $250,000 for the American Lung Association. I'm in the right-hand corner, and that's friend on my right, but looking straight on my left, is still one of my best friends, and I officiated his wedding on Mount Rainier. So the stories definitely continue beyond then. Swimming the entire length of the Allegheny River, ending in Pittsburgh. I was just curious. I was curious because I kept finding that the limits and the potential for endurance were just so much greater than anything I had imagined when I began. Now, rowing a boat across the Atlantic definitely wasn't my idea. It was an idea that found me. I was sitting on a bus, just chatting to someone next to me, and we start talking about endurance challenges. And this man mentioned his friend had rowed a boat across the Atlantic. At first, I thought he was just making it up. So I went home and I researched, and I found out that yes, people have done something as wild and daring and bold as rowing across the Atlantic. And I just found myself digging and digging more, finding out what boats were used, what equipment was used, who else had done it. And then I to imagine myself out there too, what the wildlife would be like, what the waves and the sunrises. But it kept coming back, and I realized that I had to make a choice between A, rowing across the Atlantic, or B, spend the rest of my life wondering why I didn't row across the Atlantic. So for me, 70 days seemed like it would be easier than a life of regret. So I made that bold decision at 19 that I just had to find out what it would be like to row an ocean alone. Everyone was very nervous. My parents were nervous. They definitely didn't want me to go out there. My friends were nervous. And I did have school kids that would write, and they would tell me about their worries, their concerns. And so I'm going to share with you one of those letters from an 8-year-old named Justin. And he writes, "Dear Katie, I think your quest to row across the Atlantic has gone too far. You know, you could run into sharks and stuff. Besides, what gave you the idea to row a boat anyway? Boat sunk, someone would get eaten first. That's why you shouldn't row alone. Sincerely, Justin." Well, yeah, he brings up a good point. I did try to convince many people to go with me, but unfortunately, my skills in talking people into rowing an ocean weren't so good. So in January of 2010, I fly myself to Africa. And one thing of note is that the last people that I saw were actually Rotarians. The Rotary Club of Dakar, Senegal, hosted me during my stay. I stayed with them for nearly 2 weeks waiting for my boat to arrive. And they had a sending off party and really made sure that I was set up for success from the go. So on January 3rd of 2010, I take my first stroke of the million it would take to cross. On my 19th, a lot of determination. But I was rowing in an ocean of unknowns. So half of the people who have tried to do this, they didn't make it. And the last American woman to try needed to be rescued, and she was an Olympic rower. I knew that the odds were against me, but I was as ready as I'd ever be. So that yellow speck on the horizon in this picture is actually my 19-foot rowboat. And you'll notice that there's no helicopter flying overhead. There's no boat following right behind me, which means that for those 70 days, I was completely alone. Or so I thought. On day 2, I start to feel like the small fish in a big pond. Some of the most terrifying moments on my journey weren't actually sharks or big waves, but it was boats and other people and almost getting run over throughout the night. On day 9 or night 9, I wonder who left the lights on. Some nights the moon would be so bright, it was as if a out that there was this glowing plankton, a type of phosphorescence that would also glow in the water. So it looked like my boat was on fire with glitter and sparkles and all sorts of phosphorescence that I could see at night. On day 20, I'm reaching the 4th way mark. I'm not sure how to celebrate, but that decision was made for me. And I started to see these fins appear. I know they may look like sharks, but those were actually dolphins. I had 10 or 15 dolphins surround my boat, doing all sorts of flips and tricks, and it felt like they were celebrating and cheering me on mid-ocean. All right, day 37, I am halfway across the Atlantic, and here is what that looks like. All right, so here is what day 1 and 2 and 3 and every single day at any given moment, it looked pretty much like this. So usually when I reach the halfway point, where I started. So I was kind of expecting, you know, that halftime feeling, but instead I felt completely overwhelmed. I thought to myself, I already rode 1,500 miles and I put everything I had to get there. I can't imagine doing that again, just because of the sleep deprivation and being sick of the food and everything. So I told myself I can't do it. 3,000 is too much. It's too big. I'm too overwhelmed. And the thought of doing that again makes me feel like I can't even begin. So I told myself I'm not going to row 3,000 miles. What I can do is just row 1 mile and do that 3,000 times. So it really takes this perspective. Even when I'm doing a 100-mile run or a 1,000-mile bike ride, I really let go of the big picture and completely focus on that next step. All right, day 62, I am 100 miles away from reaching land. But instead, I'm battling 25-foot waves. So I'm rowing in a part of the ocean near the continental shelf. It's known to be rough, and with a swift current and strong wind, waves just seemed to be spiking out of the blink of an eye, and I could no longer trust the sea. Admittedly, I was a little bit excited because I thought, wow, I get to test out the full capabilities of my boat. What's the point of having this fancy boat if I can't actually see what it can do? So I did feel confident in the boat's capabilities, but I also knew that with these big waves, there's no way I would be able to land without a tow, without a boat assisting me to safely get into harbor. So I had to consult with my Mini Wilson tennis ball. Okay, so here's a little side story. Rotary Club, Rotary Club before I left, donated and gave me my own Mini Wilson, just tennis ball instead. And every week, one of the Rotary Club members had their own Mini Wilson and would give updates. So it was a solo journey, but I had my support and I had a little friend to keep me company. And so we decided to add 400 more miles to my journey, rowing 2 countries west where I would have a better chance to arrive without any sort of assistance. That decision could have left me out there for 2 more weeks. I did have enough supplies, but luckily it only added 8 more days. And by day 70, I reached lands. So reaching land was one of the most surreal experiences I have ever had. I felt like I was winning an Emmy, completing a marathon, and being released out of solitary confinement all at once. After 2 years of planning and 70 days alone at sea, my dream was real, and I had become the youngest person ever to row an ocean solo. To being in front of millions and millions of people. I talked to Katie Couric, Anderson Cooper, Diane Sawyer, NPR. I was even selected as Glamour Magazine's Woman of the Year and meeting people like Oprah and Fergie and Jennifer Lopez and Julia Roberts and all these very famous people I never thought I would meet. And they would ask me questions. And the one question that came up time and time again was, why? Why did I do that row? What was the purpose behind it? And I told them, yes, of course, there's a bigger purpose beyond personal achievement, beyond world records. I told them that this was a row for water, that this was a way to raise funding and awareness for the 1 billion, at the time it was 1 in 6, 1 billion people on our planet that don't have clean water to drink. And we could do something about this. This does not have to be a possibility. And we could fight for a world that no one was what next. And for me, the natural inclination was to try something even more challenging. So 1 year later, I embarked on what I thought would be my toughest endurance challenge. It was called Race Across America, a nonstop bicycle race from one side of the country to the next. With a friend of mine, we were attempting to break the 2-person world record and make it across in 7 days. So because Zoom is a little bit like with videos, it's not so great. What I can do is just send you a video about that adventure in an email. And so you'll be able to see what happened. But basically, I ended up having to do that race because I fell off my bicycle on and broke my pelvis. I had to compete that on a hand bike. So that we had a film crew from Levi's documenting that journey and showing, the trials and tribulations of that. Adventures. The row in particular was a row for water, swim for water, ride for water. These were all events to raise funding and awareness for water. So I'll never forget, I was sitting in class, or sitting like you are right now, listening to someone talk, and I was listening to my teacher, and she mentioned that the wars of the future would be on water. And that one sentence was the one sentence that put me down the rabbit hole. Who are these people? What are you talking about? How can that be? And even living in Australia at the time, they had their own water restrictions because of drought. So they couldn't wash their cars or water their gardens at certain times. And just seeing the water shortages that they had in a very developed nation, it put me down this chase to find out more. And so, yeah, of course, I found out that a lot of people don't have clean water. Right now, it's about 1 in 8 people. I learned that kids and moms from ponds, sometimes from puddles in the ground. I learned that half of all schools, 50% of all schools, don't have clean, like India, Kenya, or Malawi. That would mean I'd have to walk 4 miles just to get water that might not be clean, and I'd have to be prepared to wait because that line could be 8 hours long. Finally, I thought I was tough for doing these challenges, but I should have been training with them. As I mentioned, they do their 4-mile trek to collect water, but when they come back, they're carrying it in jerry cans, these water containers that can easily weigh 40 pounds. So after learning all the facts, I then found hope in these seemingly hopeless situations, because I found out that, of course, there's ways to help. There's solutions like digging and drilling wells, catching the rainwater, and protecting mountain springs. At the time, it was a $30 donation that could help one person get clean water for life. Ventures, $400,000 has been raised so that kids and moms don't need to make that trek and can have a life that's more than just collecting water. So I will share a few other updates since the row and since the bike ride, teaming up with schools. Some of the highlights, I was able to team up with 10 schools in Northeast Ohio for a challenge called Schools for Water. And this was an opportunity for the kids to be the stars of the show. So what they did was 10 schools helped 10 schools in Kenya. And as a way to celebrate their fundraising goal being reached, we gathered, we had a water festival at Captain's Field in Willowick or Willoughby, one of those. We met at the Captain's Stadium, and we broke the world record for the most people carrying jugs of water on their heads, similar to what the kids and the moms in Kenya would do. So this was, a lot of kids were asking when I did the row, how could they help? How could they get involved? And this was it. This was their way to be world record holders too. As Steve mentioned in the intro, I have been honored to be selected for the Rotary International Ambassadorial Scholarship. So I was able to study social entrepreneurship in London, England. And if you're not familiar with social entrepreneurship, Tom's Shoes, where they donate a pair of shoes to support a global mission. So it's a way to find for-profit ways to tackle some of these huge global issues. In 2013, I did my first Ironman, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then you do a full marathon. And since then have done quite a few of them, including being on the Ironman Foundation team. So this was a team of athletes all around the country that had a passion for giving and service, and using their passion for fitness as a way to be a platform for causes. So 40 athletes also were doing their events with a charitable mission at heart. Some other Rotary highlights was speaking at a international conference for the Rotary clubs in Sri Lanka, and I had my first speaking engagement. About 100,000 kids across the United States with H2O for Life, and continuing to raise funding and awareness for water projects. Writing a book about the journey, and that's another way that funds do and have raised money for water projects. And it leads to today. I am in the Coast Guard, but I am training for Run for Water, which is a nonstop run across Maine. So it will be 130 miles, and it will all go towards supporting Life Water International. That's the name of the charity. And they have projects in Tanzania. So the goal is to raise $10,000, which as of last night was met. So we might raise that to 13 for $100 for every mile I run, to even help even more than I had imagined we would be able to do for Life Water International. So they work in Tanzania. Million people get clean water for life. So I'm really excited. You're welcome to follow along. I'm back on social media. So I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and will on my website be posting a little tracker so you can keep track. So that's Labor Day weekend. And that's the route, Canada to Belfast, Maine. And this route and more information is on the website. So yeah, just wanted to thank you again. I know it can be easy to think, what can I do when you have these big problems? And the answer is very simple, as you know, it's do something. I know Rotary is always so willing and able to help, and I hope that we can continue and we can partner in different ways to help communities around the world. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's so appreciated in hearing about your journeys and everything you've done. Let's see, go ahead and pull your screen off if you would. All right. I know everyone's going to have some questions. So as they want to ask the questions, please unmute yourself. I know I had a question for you. You talked about being in those 20-foot waves in that small boat. I've been in 10-footers before in a boat, and my boat was a lot bigger than yours. I can just imagine, how long were you in those 20-foot waves, and were you actually getting submerged a lot?
Well, like the way that it was, maybe for 2 days that it was like that, like, but sometimes waves like that would, like, most of the time it was like 3 to 5 foot waves. But even when I was in the middle of the Atlantic, there was a boat in Dakar, Senegal called the Concordium, and they were like a sail at sea with students all around the world. And I got a text on my satellite maybe around day 30 that their boat had sunk. So like, just because of one rogue wave. So yes, like for 2 days, it was kind of pretty gnarly. At that point, like you might think it'd be great to stay in the cabin because you're protected, but that's also where you're most likely to get like seasick. So, rowing I would call it generous to say I was rowing, because I was rowing as best I could. But at that point, like, one of the dangers of rowing in bigger seas is that you constantly have to like look at the waves to make sure you're putting the oar in the water at the exact right time, or I could have broken my rib. Yeah, and then another thing is, like, you can't have a tarp or a canopy, because in the rules of ocean rowing, if you have that, it's considered a sail and cheating. So yeah, I was pretty much, even when it was 3 to 5 foot waves, it wasn't uncommon to be splashed and hit by it.
I can only imagine. That is just crazy. I give you credit for that. Who else has some questions, please?
I do. Hey, Katie. When you would sleep, I'm sure that your boat got way off course. How did you handle that?
So my boat did have, one of the things I packed on board was a para anchor, which is basically think of a parachute. You throw it in the water and it will catch all that water. This did help minimize drift back towards Africa, but for the most part, I was being helped by the wind currents. At first, like, if you look at my final route, it definitely wasn't straight line. To it that that wasn't really possible, but I wasn't really that worried about it until the end, as much as like it was nice to see it going the direction I wanted it. I knew that it was still a long journey, and as long as I kept going west, I was going to hit land eventually. So even when people ask about like navigation, how complicated it was, I knew where the sun rises and where the sun sets in the west, so I can just use that and to row, and as long as I would hit land eventually. So yeah, but sometimes I did get blown back towards Africa a few nights. So I lost what I gained, if you want to look at it that way, which I didn't, which is, there's a difference between progress and process goals. And my process was I can give 10 to 12 hours of a day. I can't control the results of that. So even if I lost, was not lost. Yeah. Reframing.
How does the Coast Guard work with you on these things?
I have a question.
Oops, let's
Hi,
see.
Diane.
Can you hear me?
I can't.
Yep, go ahead, Diane.
Okay, I have a question. I rode on a cruise, so my question is, when you were rowing into those waves, were you riding into them? Did you have to go parallel with them? Because we were rowing into some waves, and it was a wake from a boat, and we had to quickly turn parallel with the wave, or otherwise they said we're going to split the boat. Now, our boat, of course, is different than the boat you were in.
Yeah.
But how did you row into those huge waves?
Like I would ride, like basically I just rode into
them.
Yeah. Like I don't really know how to explain it.
Kind of like sideways and parallel with them and just kind of riding the wave, or?
Like they weren't so big that I ever felt like I was going to flip. And even if I did, I was always tethered, and even on the inside I would be like strapped in. So yeah, I didn't go to the side, but more straight on.
Right, so you rode directly into them most of the time, right? Or tried to anyways.
Because if I was going on the side, then I would have probably.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I had to like worry about my oars being shattered. I had 2 sets of them, and I had stuff to like repair them. But if I was going in the side, I don't think that would work very well with braking.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Carl had a question.
How does you said you were in the Coast Guard. How do they work with you on this, and how long did you enlist for?
Sorry, what was the question?
How, can you hear me?
How does it work with the Coast Guard?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I just train on the weekends, and I have Labor Day weekend off. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you weren't in the Coast Guard when you did the journey across the ocean, though, right?
No.
Right.
Katie, on your boat, or anyhow, your boat, did you have any electronic other than a compass to give you direction as to where you were going?
I had GPS, and then like I had AIS, I had the satellite phone, I had an emergency beacon, I had a Panasonic Toughbook, and then the most like energy intensive, I had solar panels to charge everything. But the most energy intensive piece of equipment was my desalinator. So that converted the salt water into drinking water. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Oh, I had iPods. I had those too. iPods.
Of course.
Katie, you said something earlier that triggered a memory of something I've read, and I'm always impressed with long distance athletes or people who can do these impossible tasks. You talked about running the marathon or rowing, one stroke at a time. That's how you break these things up. I saw part of a reference from Tony Robbins and Stu Middleman. He talks about, again, this ultra marathoning thing. And I don't know how you do it. I'm still trying to say, well, gee, if I can take one more swallow of my drink, or not take one of this, but drink better stuff, that I can get on the path to achieving some level of success and fitness, but you're, I don't know, how do you get that framework of saying a marathon is just running 1 mile 26 times and then go from there?
I mean, I would say that there's something to be said about habit. And so now I'm at a place where this is like so ingrained, and it's harder to develop habits than maintain them. So that's why I would say that my first marathon was my most challenging one, because that was the one that I had to get through a lot of the emotional challenges of I can'ts and you know, too hards. And yeah, I don't think it's any easier, you know, like, but you just learn how to fight those battles. But I still go through it now. Like, there's some times when I run, but now it's become, you know, joyful, and I've met a lot of friends, and it's a great way to explore, and it's very meditative, and it's, yeah, there's a lot of joy that I get from it. So it's hard to imagine not doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's just amazing that chunking things down into a small, doable, repeatable piece is so simple, but it's still hard. It's just still amazingly difficult. So.
Thank you. Anybody else have some questions for Katie?
What was that?
I was saying, anybody else have questions for you? Everyone good? Okay, well, again, Katie, thank you so much for coming to talk to our group again. You're certainly an inspiration to us all, and it's always fun to hear about your exploits and everything you've accomplished. And we hope you'll come back soon and tell us what you're up to again. And we're definitely going to follow you. I think there's some things that we can do with you. Our group is also big into water. We actually we had a global grant, and we sponsored 2 solar bore wells in Nigeria. So we're big on water too, our group is.
That's awesome.
So we will certainly be in touch, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much. Okay, I just have a few announcements for everybody. Our pins are in for, and you can see the banner in my background here. Rotary opens opportunities. Pat, our district cover, Pat Myers, happened to stop by my house on Sunday and drop my pins off in the banners. So I'm going to be getting everybody their new pins that you can see right here. All right, that's our new slogan for the new year. So I'll be getting that to you. I always bring it up. Please plan on donating fruit and non-perishable goods to the Emergency Assistance Center. Our speakers next week, it's still going to be determined. If we don't get a speaker, what I would like to do is have some of our new members give a short little 2-minute bio. We do that with all our new members every year, and I know we have some new members that have just joined us, and we'd like to know more about them, what they do, their job, about their family, and just a 2-minute bio and tell us about yourself. So I will be dropping an email out this week of the new members that I'd like make sure they're willing to participate next week for that. And that should take up our speaker time for then. June 19th, we have our board meeting coming up. And then June 30th, we're going to have the installation of new officers. So if anybody else has anything they would like to add.
Steve, the board meeting is at noon, correct?
The board meeting will be at noon. It will take a place of our Tuesday regular meeting.
And it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm messing that up. The board meeting is at noon. It'll be Zoom on June 19th. The June 30th installation of officers will be also on a Tuesday at noon, and that will be replacing one of our meetings also. All right.
Got it.
Well, good.
Oh, and the new pins are adorable.
You like them?
Get it? Adorable. doors.
Oh, there you go. It's another little pun that you're putting out there. Right. It went right over my head.
I know.
Open the doors adorable. I love it. Okay, does anyone else have anything to add? All right, with that being said, if everyone could join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned?
Third,
Third,
with goodwill and better
Friendships.
Fourth,
Four will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think it was a great meeting. We all had a good time. And with that being said, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye,
week, everybody.
Bye.